mind should be associated with the good. That is what he said. Satsang, you have to maintain. Sajjana Sanghe. This is where we left. And further, he's saying you must meditate upon the form of the Lord of Lakshmi, which is Lord Vishnu. And then lastly, at the intellectual level, the Gita and the Sahasranamam should be chanted. Thank you, Ma. So when we spoke about the mind should be associated with the good, that quality of trying to eke out that conscious choice you make to associate with the good in every environment, in any situation, in any experience, is a conscious application of a general practice, what we call as satsang. Satsang is to be in the company of the good, or to be in an environment which is in your own development. It helps you in your own betterment, for your own self-transformation. But taking a stock of what the world is, as we understand, the world is not entirely designed to cater to any individual needs. So the world doesn't necessarily present itself as a blessing or a curse. It is neutral. So it is entirely up to how you relate and what choices you make, so that you establish an environment for your own self-transformation, or the same world, the choices you make can become an instrumental for your own downfall. So it entirely depends upon how you interact and what you choose. And satsang, as we say, good company, is the choice you make to choose and extract the good in every situation and every environment. And in fact, as I've said, the text in the 9th mantra spoke about this famous, in fact, the famous 9th verse, the ladder of rise. Please note this. The famous 2 ladders, we spoke in detail when we did the 9th verse, but since the text mentions it here, he's almost trying to recap what was said. So it's worth reminding ourselves. Verse 9 spoke about the ladder of rise, and the entire ladder starts, the first rung of the ladder starts with satsang. So your spiritual transformation begins with the capacity to establish or maintain a satsang in every walk of your life. Every step of your way, you have to maintain satsang. So the famous verse says, satsangatve nisangatvam. From the satsang, you develop nisangaha. You develop non-attachment to the non-essentials. You develop a detachment to the lower. And once you have that capacity to be detached or non-attached, you become free from delusion. So actually, what causes delusion is your own attachment. It clouds your clarity of thought. Your own attachment clouds your wisdom. So non-attachment leads you to freedom from delusion. And once you are free from delusion, you are less deluded, your actions become steadfast. There is a tunnel vision. You have your blinkers on. You have your focus very clearly pegged on to the higher, and it's just a matter of time you attain self-realization. It's not a joke, as we learned the other day. It's not a joke to even conceive self-realization as a goal of your life. When was it? Just a couple of days ago, we spoke about even to conceive self-realization in one of the other classes I was mentioning, that how many can even actually conceive self-realization? It's the loftiest of all goals. So to conceive it and ensure your actions are driven to it. So the entire transformation begins with satsang. And I remember interacting last week with, I think, RPG. I remember asking him. So the three transactions, the real satsang happens at R1. R1 is where there is a receipt, isn't it? There is a receipt of stimuli from the organs of perception. So you got to ensure that the receipt is checked. That's when the world enters into you. And then you take care of the reaction and lastly the responses. Now, this is what we last left with. We said these are our four possibilities. So if your receipt of stimuli from the world is negative, your reactions and responses are negative, it's no big deal. The second possibility is when the world sends positive receipts, when the world is kind and courteous to you, you reciprocate it by being kind and courteous. There's nothing great to talk about. When the receipt is positive, your reaction is negative, responses are negative. This is a very unhealthy state. The most healthiest state is when the receipt is negative, your reaction and response are positive. So satsang is you take care of the R1. The next level of satsang is you take care of R2 and R3. This is how satsang itself evolves. You got to understand. Preliminarily, you choose right environment because you don't have the internal strength. But once you are strong, once you're evolved, you're able to transform a negative input into a positive reaction, and your response are positive. So satsang really kicks in at the R2 level. Sriniji, don't start scratching your head already. It's just, we're just warming up for the day. And now only you're scratching your head now, then what? Oh, I don't know what to say next. Huh? See, I've missed you for 2 weeks now. Now I see, I feel very comfortable. Huh? You should not be incognito, you know. Now you turn up, your other partner doesn't turn up. What is this going on? Hide and seek, both of you are playing. Even the same reaction RPG had. When I say a partner, he also didn't react. The same reaction he also gave. Is he there? I don't think he's here today. So Sriniji, if I can connect with you, I remember telling that we will hear very briefly on perhaps some case study or some experience quickly you can mention about, because the first two is very easy to understand. But when the world is positive and the input is positive, but your reaction is negative, leading to your responses which are unfavorable. Can think of an example?
Yeah, Pranam Guruji. Firstly, I'm pleased that Kamleshji has joined. So I'm going to use an example which is very recent, which happened during the Olympics. And we spoke about this gentleman, which is Djokovic. If you remember one of the classes, we talked about Djokovic, how calm he was. So I thought what happened this last 2 days was really fascinating to show a different sense of Djokovic. When he was telling on the social media against Naomi Osaka, saying, you know, it's a privilege to have responses when you have so much fame. You know, he was actually digging on her, in my view. And here is a man who suddenly lost it. And in the mixed doubles, he lost his bronze medal. And then he completely, so he was getting all positive vibes from the country. And then he was going in with his partner, which is what shocked me with the mixed doubles. And he just withdrew through the racket, broke it. Luckily, there are no fans. I thought that was very, very strange, where the country, the people were giving him positive responses. He was a partner who he had already playing the first set, who was encouraging him, and he threw out a negative emotion. That's what comes to me.
Absolutely. In fact, once we have a certain eye to see, we see it everywhere around us, isn't it?
Correct.
Yeah, very true. Very, very true. So when the whole country, as you said, is so proud that you're representing the nation and it's backing you, and then you're not able to control a mere emotion, and that comes as an impediment between such a large spectacle. The entire country, the whole sporting fraternity were looking for an arena like that, setting a setup like that, and you prepare so long for such a spectacle, and come the time you can't control a mere emotion, and you're just bowled over, isn't it? Clean bowl. Very, very sad.
Yeah.
So so this knowledge, in fact, as I've said, I've actually interacted very closely to top international sportsmen from cricket. I've had the chance of very closely interacting with them, and they represented the country at the very top international level for many years. And one of them was Lakshman. I remember very closely interacting with VVS Lakshman from Hyderabad, met him a few times and things. And he told me this, and this was during his peak, when he was still playing. And he said this, when he had access to this knowledge, he said, "Sir, I exactly know where you're pitching in this knowledge, because it is that aspect of mind management is so essential. And if this aspect is not introduced or not mastered on, it actually impairs your efficiency, and actually you see a clear disparity in one who is able to and one who isn't." In fact, what even other day I heard in the cricket news here and there, what little I gather, who is that, the very successful English all-rounder, who is that?
Ben Stokes. Are you talking about Ben Stokes?
Yes, Ben Stokes.
Who's just given up cricket. Yeah.
Has he given up? I thought he said he's taking an indefinite leave from cricket due to mental health. This was the headlines. And there is this very hyped cricket test series between India and England going to start soon in a couple of days. And here is one of the key person to play a role in your test squad, and he indefinitely withdraws from all formats of sport because of mental health.
Yeah.
So irrespective of what the world throws at you, if you don't have a healthy mind and intellect, your reaction and responses is going to be negative. So how the consequences of not being able to master yourself is very evident, isn't it? In fact, earlier when I shared the slide, when you're overpowered by delusion, you don't know, buddhi nashat pranashriti. Let me share this screen again and share this particular, the ladder of fall. These are the two famous ladders the scriptures talk about. And at the very end of the ladder, you see, when there's delusion, there's loss of memory and there's loss of intellect. It leads you to total destruction. And this is what we actually see in the case you're referring to. When you lose your intellect, you lose your sanity. You don't know what you do. You don't know where you are. You don't know how you conduct yourself. You don't know the consequences of your actions. It's at that moment you become very erratic, irrational, impulsive, and pay the price for being carried away by your emotions. Isn't it? Right. So that was when we say the stimuli is positive, your reaction is negative, response is negative. Now, if I can ask, maybe if I can ask Kamleshi just to give us, sir, I'm sure you will appreciate. I'm listening and seeing to these people every other day, so I'm tired of listening to them and seeing them. So I get excited if any new member comes. So please forgive my childishness. So I want to, namaskar, sir. So I want to get a new perspective. So I'm sure you have been able to follow the thought process. So the last possibility, as we have said, is when the stimuli is negative, you have your inner stature that you've converted into positive reaction and positive responses. Could you think of an example? Yes, please.
This is my first satsang attendance, so I hesitate to say something very far away in the learning process, right? And for the first mantra, my father used to sing every day. So I felt very emotional when I heard BHAJAGOVINDAM, BHAJAGOVINDAM, Govindam Bhajamuramate. So it was very connection from the past,
Right.
child. But the ladder of self-destruction. So I wrote that also in my own book called The Spirit of One. And mind, asakti, attachment, desire, kama, anger, krodha, loss of reason, viveka bhrashta, knowledge loss, jnana bhrashta, loss of wisdom, buddhi bhrashta, and then self-destruction. This is the ladder of self-destruction I created a long time ago.
Right.
So very, very drastic from mind to self-destruction, and you showed that just now as well. So nothing more to add to this. This is the path of self-destruction, on which you showed that in the chart, and I also show that here as well. All right. Yeah. So mind is the source to source and maybe the sink as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Gee, it looks like your chart is more impressive than mine. I'm going to steal your chart.
Yeah, Srini has the copy of the book.
Yeah.
And I will send a PDF. I have the PDF as well. But anyway.
So sweet of you. Right. So lovely to hear from you, sir. Yes. So the real, as I've said, the real satsang is when the negative gets transformed into positive. Venkatramanji, can I ask you, sir, any thought example? So we can't hear you. I'm sorry. Could you please? Yeah, now fine.
Yeah, sorry. I was waiting to be asked to unmute. Sorry.
Yeah.
So, see, basically, you said that when the internal is positive, even when the external stressor is negative, the response is always positive.
Yes.
And I like to put it in my own words, which is my own way of this, that you have no control over somebody's actions, but you have control over your reaction. So just because somebody is negative to you doesn't mean that you have to react negatively. You still are in control of how you react. Okay. Last week something very negative happened to me. Now I will not go into the details, but initially I was boiling. I was like surging with anger. But after about half an hour of patience and the golden rule, count till 10, everything calmed down, and the course of action that I decided for myself, it will take a little bit longer, but it will resolve the situation very peaceably. Okay, so that is what I understand from what you said.
Yes. Yes. So if your internal personality is strong and well established in the higher values, so when one's inner personality is not grounded in wisdom, I repeat, Venkatraman, I'm still with you. So when
Yes.
your inner personality, which is your mind and intellect, when it is not grounded in wisdom, what is the state of your mind and what's the state of your intellect?
I mean, I don't know. I think the word is negative. it is not virtuous.
It is not
It is
virtuous.
not
All right.
dharmic, if one wants to have.
It is not virtuous. It's not dharmic. Right. In fact, what I was actually getting at is when our inner personality, when it's not grounded in wisdom, means when it's not endowed with wisdom, with higher values, your mind is restless, your mind is agitated, and the intellect doesn't have the clarity of thought. This is the effect of not having the higher wisdom. So when the mind and intellect is weak, with no innate nature of the mind being peaceful, nor having the clarity of thought, so the external stimuli would rock the boat very easily, because you're not solid, you're not established, isn't it? Like, it's like, remember at some time we spoke about, there are these stabilizers in these ships which help to ensure that these huge ships don't rock as much in the rough seas, because they have the stabilizers. So it is the wisdom that stabilizes you from the knocks and shocks, which is the crusts and trucks of the world, isn't it? But the same thing, when the mind and intellect is endowed with wisdom, the mind remains calm and the intellect has that clarity of thought. So whatever is thrown at you, you have the internal immunity not to rock you, not to unsettle you. And each of us should be able to measure what is the character and quality of your inner wealth. The inner wealth is the wisdom which reflects. Now, how do you know how much wisdom or wealth you have? It reflects in the state of your mind and intellect. And Venkatramji, are we not put through test in every experience? What is the character of your mind and intellect?
Yes, we are. Another thing is that when things are positive, we don't value it. When things are negative, it registers in the mind. For example, I like to tell my people that, you go somewhere, you find a parking spot there itself. You don't thank the Providence for having found a convenient parking spot. You just park, you assume it's your right, you walk in. But when you don't get a parking spot, you are cursing yourself. So that impression is always stronger than the positive impression of having found a parking spot easily. That is how the mind also reacts. And we need to, through many sessions like this, through satsang, we need to be able to identify the positive around us.
Yeah. Simple things like that, isn't it? It's a very
Simple
refreshing,
things like that.
very refreshing experience. Even
Correct.
a simple thing like not finding a parking bay can put you, can just disturb you,
Correct.
Or it can be an untimely downpour.
Correct.
And if you're not prepared, if you're prepared, there's no problem. If you're carrying an umbrella, you wouldn't complain untimely downpour. But if you're not prepared, you'll curse the weather, you'll curse the climate, you'll curse the government, you'll curse everybody. Because you didn't leave on time, you will blame the traffic if you have provided. Other day I was with a bank manager, Harishi, Union Bank manager. So let's not curse the bank managers. The other day I got a lovely message from Harishi. I wouldn't mention, many messages come. One of the messages was about the banks and the bank managers, how they are treating us. So did you not send me, Harishi? His namaskar means yes. So, and I was with this bank manager, Harish. So, this bank manager, she stays 1.5 hours away from where the branch is. And she was, and just she had given some instructions, and she was happy to have me in a cabin, and we were having a conversation. What do I do? And things like that. And the conversation became philosophical. And then she was saying, I actually don't complain that 1.5 hours of drive onward and return, because that's the only time I'm not thinking of my work. I'm not thinking of my family. I'm not doing anything else. It's just the time I get to be with myself. And it just gives that space. Because imagine if in 10 minutes, if I reach home, a new chapter of new challenges begins. And I have started my day here from 9 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock in the evening. I'm there bombarded with so many challenges, and I just need the time to recuperate and just be myself. So she said that 1.5 hours drive is actually a blessing Or you can say, oh my God, after having such a long day, am I to go through this traffic and hell and reach home and then I'm exhausted? No, she's celebrating that very same difficulty. She says, I look forward for the drive as much as I look forward to work. So it was a very bright perspective to what one is subjected through a chaos of traffic and driving, and it takes so much out of you. So this is satsang. So if you have an inner strength of your mind and intellect, so it just reinforces the thought. Reddy Garu, it actually reinforces our efforts that we are in the right path, and our efforts will establish us in such a state that whatever the world throws at you, you will be ever in satsang. Isn't it, sir?
That's Guruji. That's Pranam Guruji. I think it's a fabulous Guruji. Mind and intellect is two drivers for the life, undoubtedly. And as good as, like, we put an analogy of driving in a vehicle, which we call as a life, where brake and accelerator is really required. So you need to apply the mind and you need to apply the intellect on and off where and when required situations calls for.
Sir, I did not talk of brake, accelerator and all these things. You have gone far ahead of us, sir.
No, I'm not far ahead, Guruji. I'm just behind you only. Far behind. I'm driving very slowly so that I'm far behind.
Very good, sir. Right. Appreciate. Right. Okay. Right. So that was the concept when he said mind to be associated with the good. And just moving on to the next quality here. He says at the emotional level, you should meditate upon the form of the Lord of Lakshmi. The Lord of Lakshmi refers to Lord Vishnu. You must meditate always. So meditation here suggests at the emotional level, when your thoughts go towards the higher, there is that you cultivate the emotion of gratitude and surrender. So what are the consequences when you are grateful? What are the consequences when you're ungrateful? In fact, even before we talk about what are the consequences of being grateful and ungrateful, when is it one tends to be grateful or ungrateful? When is it one gets into this? When does this emotion come in first and foremost? See, the emotion of gratitude or the emotion of you complain, you're ungrateful for what you have. Now, it stems from a simple weakness in us. I want you to think, Harish, what is that simple weakness, the quality in us which expresses as being grateful or being ungrateful?
Hari Om Guruji. Selfishness, Guruji. The quality of selfishness that we think we are entitled to certain things in our life, where we feel when we are ungrateful, we have a selfish quotient or sense of entitlement.
All right. Yeah. In fact, you are in the line of thought. So you're very right. So when your attention is on what you already, as somebody said, what providence has already provided. As Venkatramanji said, even a simple thing like you get a parking bay, you just drive in and you find a parking bay, you're grateful. You must be thankful. So when your attention is on what you have, you're always thankful and grateful. But the moment your attention shifts on what you do not have, you constantly complain, you're ungrateful to what you have. You do not know what providence has provided. That's where desire and greed overwhelm you, isn't it? So is your attention on what you have, or is your attention on what you do not have? As simple as that. At every stage, am I thankful for what I have? I can complain. You know, the famous words we often quote and come across, you know, I complained I had no shoes until I met a man who had no feet. So what am I complaining? I'm complaining I have no shoes. Yes, I have no shoes, certainly, or they're torn and tattered. But all that grumbling and complaining just had to be realigned when I came across a man who was in a wheelchair, had no feet. Oh my God, am I thankful I have the two limbs? Or am I complaining that I have no shoes? So Sriniji, every time are we thinking of what we have or thinking of what we don't have? And how do we ensure that you think constantly of what you have?
Yeah, I mean, the mind always focuses on what you don't have. That's the challenge. I actually thought the question was, I see how you went about it. I thought it was the root cause of gratitude and not being gracious is, I thought, wants. That's what I thought. It's your desire, right? Which is slightly different to what you have, I thought.
Sorry, could you come again on that, please? Could you repeat?
Yeah, so I approached the question when you asked Harish Ji, I thought it was wants. That means I want something. I keep the quest of wanting that. And if I get something, what I wanted, I'm gracious, I'm happy. And if I didn't get it, I'm unhappy. See,
when you get something what you desire, you're never grateful. You're just temporarily contented. The emotion of gratitude never comes. We never use gratitude as an emotion which arises from a fulfillment of desire. It's an interesting thought, though. I would not say you're wrong, but in the spiritual context, when your desire meets what it gets, what it wants, there's only a temporary satisfaction, and even that's not permanent, because again your mind entertains, as we know, endless desires. So you can't say, oh, I'm so grateful, I'm so graciously thankful for what the providence has provided, and I'm contented and peaceful. No, your mind keeps drawing you outward, chasing for more and more and more. It's insatiable, isn't it? So the insatiable nature of the mind doesn't give you a chance to live in gratitude, because it constantly craves for more and more and more. So therefore we say, when you get what your mind desires or demands, you only have a temporary satisfaction, leading you to a vicious cycle of chasing more and more what your mind demands. But when you get off that route of chasing the mind and just sit back and look at what you have already acquired, what you have been provided for, and then your life is embellished with a feeling of thankfulness and gratitude. So thankfulness is when you feel a sense of fullness within, you know. So thankfulness and fullness is a feeling of contentment or satisfaction within, when you feel I am paripurna, I am enough, thank you, I don't want anything more. So the greed and desire doesn't overwhelm you.
Got it.
You get it?
Yeah.
So these
So
are
why
the
does the
two.
mind always
Yes, please.
not? I'm sorry.
No, please go ahead.
So why does the mind always say, does not look at what you have? I mean, you don't even think about it. It's taken for granted. Why does that happen?
See that question, only one person can answer in this classroom. You know whom? Who can answer that? Harish ji is the only one who can answer it.
Which my brother Harish ji?
Yeah. Oh, who else? You know, and I say why? Because that is the characteristics of a rat. And why I say that, and I say Harish ji, is every second statement of his, he says, Guruji, I am your rat. I am your rat. I am your rat. He keeps saying that. So this is a trademark tagline of Harish ji. Including yesterday night, I slept and I dreamt of rat because Harish ji planted a thought of rat into me. Harish ji, now you're haunting me in the dream also. Please don't do this. You know, today, you know, so he planted this thought of a rat. So maybe you should connect with him outside the class, what the rat business is. But you know why I take the example of a rat, Sriniji? Rat, is it a mammal, isn't it?
Yes.
Rat comes under mammal. A rat is the only mammal or only living being apart from humans. You know, a rat is constantly busy. You know, it's very busy. You never see a rat sitting quietly in a couch and contemplating. It's very busy, restless. So a rat is constantly searching for food. Certain things may be applicable to Harishji also, but we will not draw the comparison. That's outside the class. Harishji, I'm very sorry. You have to forgive me today. Huh? So a rat is the only mammal. It constantly searches for food. It gets, let's say it gets what it wants. It goes and stores in the burrows or somewhere where it stores, and it actually forgets where it is stored. So rat goes, it's busy searching because when it's actually hungry, it doesn't know where it's kept the food. So that is the trait of a mammal, of a rat in a human. You are constantly acquiring Kanchana and Kamini. This is the theme of the text. Kanchana is acquisition, Kamini is enjoyment. So human mind is constantly acquiring. Having acquired, you have hoarded it. And having hoarded it, you have forgotten where you've hoarded it. So you don't, as I just got the tip from your question. Why is it that the mind acquires and forgets what it is? Because it's a trait of a rat. We are trying to pick up the trait of Lord Ganesha, not the rat. Lord Ganesha is someone who is supposed to have mastered the rat, which is the mind, which is at its feet. Isn't it? Symbolically, please. So it is the very nature. You can't, I don't know whether you can rationalize it. Why is it that the mind tends to, is it what you're asking, Ji? Tends to?
Not understand what you have, or, you know, you just take it for granted. It's not even conscious. You're not even conscious of it.
Yeah. It just tells us how greed and desire has consumed our lives. Because desire is to constantly live in the future. And desire takes you to something you do not have. But Vedanta or the Shastras are not saying you should not acquire, please. But that doesn't mean you should go on acquiring, unmindful of what you have and not knowing the value. It's abusing. That's almost abusing. So the greed for acquiring is insatiable, and that's one trap we all fall a prey to. So one quality, in fact, we all must learn to cultivate, to arrest this greed, is to lead a life where you have standardized your life. That's very, very important. You must live a life of certain standardization. Once you have standardized your life, standardization means you have put a cap, you have put a limit to your wants and desires. So once you have put a cap to your wants and desires, thereafter your mind is taken off this constant greed. That greed or desire is the element of rajas. Tamas is no action at all. Rajas is where you're constantly driven on your own selfishness, your desires, your greeds, your personal wants. Now, let me connect with you, Sriniji, again. What action can you conceive beyond a life of rajas? I repeat, Sriniji, tamas is a state of inaction. Rajas is where your action is only driven to gratify and satisfy your unending desires and wants. Now, my question is, what kind of an action can you conceive beyond the rajasic category?
Isn't it the sattvic?
Yes, a sattvic action. Now, what is a sattvic action?
Where you do not expect anything in return, right? You do it.
That's the appendage, I would say. But what's the main cream of sattva?
I think pure duty, as I see it. No?
Thereafter, you're duty bound. But sattvic action is an action driven with a higher cause, a greater purpose, a larger interest beyond your own selfish, aggrandizing greed. See, you have conceived a cause beyond your own self. You're not working only to gratify your own selfish ends. Gee, I'm just taking example. You hope you don't mind. I know you play golf. So you may have a decent enough golf, what do you call the clubs, what do you call the golf set? Huh? Let's say the golf set you have costs you $5,000. I don't know the pricing, please just tell it. But they could be a professional set where the professional use it. You can get even a 50,000, 100,000 golf set as well. There is no end to it, isn't it? Is there an end to it? There is no end to it. You could be living in a house which costs you a couple of $1 million. But round the corner, there are villas which cost you $20 million also. Don't mind the figures, I'm just arbitrarily saying. So you can slog and acquire rest of your life, run and chase acquiring, wanting to move from 2 million to a $20 million house. You say, I have an outdoor swimming pool. Now I want an indoor climate controlled swimming pool. That is your desire. Is there any end to what your mind can ask for? There is no end, including Ravana wanting Sita. Remember that. You may say, what is wrong in wanting a $20 million house with an indoor climate controlled swimming pool? And not just ordinary, I want an Olympic sized swimming pool. Wow. That is life. That's luxury. That's what I want. There is no end. What do you categorize that as? That falls under rajasic action.
Rajasic.
But you got to shift from rajas to sattva when your actions become more pure, sacrificial, unselfish, and that is when you arrest the greed of the mind. So you're not thinking of yourself. You're not thinking of your own interests. Your actions become nobler, virtuous, and that also helps you to keep a lid on the needs and wants of your mind. Just an example, sir. Let's say you are a corporate man. Now, I am not a corporate man. So I don't need trousers and formal shirts, let's say. I don't need formal jackets and formal wear. Let's say you have to wear a formal wear because of your work demand. And how do you standardize that formal wear? Okay, I need 20 pairs of shirts and trousers, and let's say 6 jackets. And you can buy from a range of things, isn't it out there? You go into a supermarket, to a mall, you can buy a shirt for $30, you can buy a shirt for $500. I'm just saying, don't disregard the figure, please. Now, what is your standard? First of all, do you know how many trousers have you got? Do you know how many formal shoes have you got? You know how many buckles have you got for your shirts, formal shirts? You know how many jackets have you got? The fact that you don't know, I'm assuming you do not know, huh? Rajesh, how many t-shirts you have, how many this you have, how many that you have. But once you have standardized your life, I will have 20, I'll have 5, full stop. And once you need to change them, you will get rid of the old, you may have 20 usable things. But if you don't have a lid, I remember once somebody jokingly shared, I knew the family very well. He said, other day, my wife's wardrobe broke because of the load of her shopping. So the next time I have to renovate it. So I'm going to refurbish it with solid steel, with nuts and bolts, heavy duty, because the chance of them collapsing doesn't happen. This is what will be the state if you don't put a lid on your demands and wants. So one way to put it is to put standardization. Further, you don't have to have a higher goal. Start off with this, and once you switch to sattva, automatically your immediate needs and wants doesn't drive you. You're well provided for, but you don't become a victim to this greed. That's why he says you must develop an attitude of surrender and gratitude. So one way of looking at it is the way we said, when your attention is on what you have, you're grateful. On what you don't have, you become greed, you become avaricious. The second thought is when you tend to compare, we have another weakness. Vijayaraghavanji, don't we have this tendency or quality to constantly compare ourselves with others?
Pranam Guruji, I don't know whether it directly answers. I would like to share my one little experience.
Please.
Experience, lifetime habit. I had been traveling for decades very heavily. So one of the most horrible experience at the beginning of my career was to wait at the airport for the baggage to arrive, and used to get very tense, very angry, because you would have lined up a lot of appointments, to meet various people. Mentally you are occupied and you feel very impatient and you start, fidgeting all around. Then I suddenly realized that every airport has got a certain pattern of luggage arrival. Some are usually delayed, but then it's always around an average. And second thing is, your baggage can come first or can come last. I realized one day that, look, I don't seem to remember the times when I got it first, but I always seem to remember the times I got it last or later. Why am I getting het up? I mean, shouldn't we be a little sane about it? So every time it used to get delayed, I said, okay, last time I got it early. Now this time it's getting late. Okay, next time I'm going to get it early. Okay. And also used to have a look at the others. It's a very good reflection of people's personalities, these baggage lines, Some people used to literally go mad, when their thing is delayed. And some people used to just stoically hang around, and some people used to play games or listen to songs. And those days when it was allowed, used to smoke, used to spend time. Then you realize that it's a constant thing you are subjected to. It's up to you, how do you take it? So I slightly graduated to, not getting affected. Then I started using it as a matter of game. So as you get out of the aircraft, to say, hey, no, let's see what happens today. Look forward to it almost in a new experience and just try to, psycho myself to enjoying it.
Right.
Then finally I started, whenever you see a very, very tense character around, used to go to him and say something stupid, and so that let's see how his reaction is. Invariably, I found that they suddenly took their mind off the delay and started doing something else and possibly started relaxing. And it's nothing. I mean, it's the same airport, same delays, same pattern, nothing, no different. I realized it's entirely up to them. And I could also go peacefully outside and get into the cab. Otherwise, I used to be, slightly drained out of the experience of having, lost my cool mentally. And sometimes you go and shout at the airport guys also. Not required. I mean, really, it will come when it would come.
Yeah. So it just tells us once you're more mindful of managing your thoughts and how much of our valuable energy gets dissipated into unproductive, inefficient avenues, which just saps us, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was pointless in retrospect.
Absolutely.
But we all go through it. There's no need to be, condescending about it. I suppose we do go through that. And then sometime, if we are able to do that, even now, once in a while, it happens that, I'm not able to control it. If something else is impinged on the mind negatively, this adds to it. That's all. Not being able to be cool about it.
Yeah. I was just going to say that even right now, when I say now, even the present moment, it's possible that your mind could be playing a similar trick and distracting you from the higher.
Correct.
All right. Right. Yes. Thanks for sharing that. Yes, Harishji, you want to say something? Harishji, you want to say something?
Yes, but I think Haresh has been waiting for longer.
Yes, I will.
After him.
Yes. Before I get to Haresh, I just want to mention the question which I said. The question was comparing. What was the question? Comparing, Rajima?
Guruji, the first point was when gratitude and surrender, when you compare yourself, I think you probably wanted to talk about the horizontal and vertical view. Is that what you want?
No. So the comparing, so the weakness we
with
have,
others,
which brings about an attitude of gratefulness or constant desiring, is when you compare yourself. So when you compare yourself with people more fortunate than you, you always become greedy. You want more. But you would never ever compare yourself with people less fortunate than you. So the strategy, one way of arresting your mind is compare yourself with people who don't have as much as you are being provided with. Instantly you become thankful. Why do you have to constantly compare with someone living in a $20 million home? Why can't I compare myself with someone who is living in a rented apartment? Oh my God, God has been very kind. Not that he's been kind to you, unkind to him, but just thank Providence for what you have and just let me be grateful for what is there. So instantly our attitude changes. So instead of desiring for something you do not have and you feel envious of people who have and wanting that, you will just say, he has worked harder, he has got it, he deserves it. Why should I be envious at it? But I need to create the right mental climate within myself. And how do I do that? By just, by simple things like, he takes a public transport. I've got a car to drive. What more I can ask for? Or I can say, I want to have a sports car. You have a car, you're desiring a sports car, vis-a-vis you have a car and you're thankful because my neighbor doesn't have a car as well. He just takes a public transport. So how the same perspective changes. The same situation of wanting something new vis-a-vis thankful for what you have. So these are the two ways we can actually look at to the question you have said. Okay. All right. Yes. Yes, Harish. Sorry, you have to be constantly blessing us.
No, Guruji, thank you, Guruji. Thank you, Harish.
Yes.
Guruji, I want to understand, I wish to understand, there are a lot of people who are very grateful, but who actually have very little. And there are people who are very ungrateful, who still keep getting a lot and who have a lot. I don't understand how that equation works with the providence. I have seen a lot of it, and I'm just trying to understand. I mean, there's no judgment or anything. I'm just trying to understand why so many ungrateful people have so much and keep getting, and grateful people have very little or are struggling.
Okay. So I don't know whether it is a law of life, but it could be a very candid observation. That's what you say, because you are able to relate it in certain people, but you can't pass it as a law of life that's applicable to everybody. It's not so. Doesn't seem to be so. But just to rationalize that observation, see, many people who you say are grateful but not provided for, so they don't have enough, but they are grateful. It has that it doesn't mean that when you're grateful, you don't have with you. It doesn't tantamount to that. But people who are not active, who are not producers, who don't lead a life of action, in short, people who are grateful and who are tamasic, who are inactive. So their action doesn't provide them, but they seem to have this quality of gratefulness. It's actually a tamasic quality. Please remember, tamas actually mocks sattva. So a person who is tamasic thinks he's actually sattvic. The only way you can advance productivity and prosperity is action. You cannot remain inactive and expect yourself to be industrious or successful in life. Just because I've been a failure all my life doesn't mean I can't achieve success tomorrow, isn't it? I can achieve success tomorrow. So am I a fighter, or have I given up on all the failures of my life? So I can choose to win tomorrow, irrespective of all the failures I've had so far. So if I am a man of action, I will be a producer. So it will result in my material quotient. So what I'm actually getting at is, a tamasic person may be inactive. He may have so-called gratitude, but it is not the ideal state. Now, this is the concept we spoke in the Guru Purnima talk, where the topic was you and providence, where you are inactive and yet you want to invoke providence and grace. It doesn't work. The second category, Rajasic people, are active and they are ungrateful because they want greed and more and more. The Sattvic people is where they are active, so their action produces, and yet they have the higher values because they have surrendered to the higher. They have this element of gratitude and they're contented, but yet they are producing. So I'm bringing three combinations here. Tamasic people are inactive, and I would call what is known as a passive gratitude. It's not real gratitude. Rajasic people are active and industrious, but they constantly keep craving for more and more. Sattvic people are active because of their action, they're industrious. At the same time, they are actively gracious. They are ever grateful. So And as I said, tamas mocks sattva. So your observation that people who are grateful invariably are deprived for is because they have a tamasic category. A truly sattvic person is blessed with prosperity and peace, because these are the two ingredients of a perfect action. You will have prosperity and peace. And this is the law of life. Sattvic action is a law of life, not tamasic action. So you may have to rationalize your observations, Haresh. Perhaps this would give you some clarity as to why it is so.
Yes, Guruji.
Right. All right.
Thank you, Guruji.
Thank you. Kamlesh ji, you had posed a question. I don't know whether it is clarified.
Yeah, on the topic of having and not having, and then acquiring things, and I want to share one, not a story, but some aspect of my life. When I was a kid, there was no shoes. We couldn't afford a pair of shoes. So the story about, and it was very painful, children and 8 siblings, no one has having shoes by the way, because father could not afford shoes to buy.
Right, right.
But as I grew up adult, and I'm not boasting about it, but automatically things happened. And I never worried about what I have and what I don't have, never. This is a question to you, Guruji. Is something wrong with me or with my mind? Why I don't worry about what I have and what I don't have? It never occurred to me, whole adult life, after the without shoes childhood days in Bihar. Why is something wrong with me that I don't worry about what I have, what I don't have? That's my question, Guruji, to you or anyone in the satsang. Why I don't worry? Why? I don't know. Something wrong with me?
Sir, it is now I'm envious at you, sir.
Can I say?
Because I'm envious at that quality of yours where you don't worry for what you have. You're not concerned of what you have, nor you're worried about what you don't have. It's a blessing. You're blessed.
Nothing wrong. I don't think wrong in the mind.
You are blessed, sir. It's a beautiful quality where you don't get consumed by the non-essentials. Your thoughts are perhaps rested on the higher. They are
But in the
much grander things.
childhood, I worried. I was envious. I was jealous of my neighbor's children. They had nice shoes, nice shirt, everything.
It just tells about your inner wealth. It just talks about how it's a sattvic quality, as we have been talking, so that you, as I was answering Sriniji also, I mentioned about once you have standardized your certain life, you don't think about it. It becomes a thing of life, and then you're able to serve your life for a much greater purpose, not just running behind what you have and what you don't have. It could be of a different degree. You may say, I'm looking at buying properties all over the country, or all over the world, or you may want yachts, or you may want private jets, you may want this flashy life, you may want that exotic holiday. The same thing as you're talking of a child, you envied your neighbor children having a better shirt or shoes. Now you say, oh, my colleague has bought a new parcel of land there. He's invested that many millions here, and he has got that much interest from this investment. He has bought that much stock there. Isn't it the same childishness you're running with? It's just that you're picking up a different toy and you feel yourself, you don't have something, man, the same childishness. So the fact that you don't feel that, it just talks of your maturity and your spiritual stature, that it doesn't bother you. So it's a blessing. It's a blessing, right, sir? Right, thank you. It's a sattvic quality. We wish we all have that. All right. Oh, we all are trying to aspire that to this knowledge. Hariji, is there anything? I saw, sorry, you wanted to say something a couple of times. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I would say the modern management or the corporate management, they give more importance to the SWOT analysis of the competitors than their own strength and weakness. They spend money, energy, time, I don't know what all. The importance of analysis of the competitors is much more than their own concentrating on their own effort, on their own strength. And the younger generation, they are all falling prey into it.
Yes. In which context, very rightfully said, but in which context are you putting it, sir?
Comparing.
Comparing.
I compare.
Right.
That is the main topic now. No? I am comparing. I compare with my neighbor.
Right.
And this is what the corporate world, the modern management is teaching the younger generation. Compare, 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 compare.
Right. Got it, sir.
I am more interested in the strength of my competitor than my own strength and what I can do for the society.
Yes.
And that is modern management.
Get it. Right, sir. Appreciate. Yes. Yes, Harishji. Anything?
Guruji, you've said it all much more beautifully than I could have possibly, but I did think of talking about sattva mocking, tamas mocking sattva.
Right.
In the concept of just as you have false happiness, you also have false gratitude. You know.
I'm glad.
I think you said that. And I also was wanting to say that something which you have said always, that all these agitations, or for that matter, any of these worries and anxieties, as Kamleshji put it, arise out of the value you give to something. And the moment you start focusing and you combine this with the other concept which you have taught us, which is that when you focus on the higher, automatically the lower gets less relevant or affects you less. So it drops away. It's like when you get the cycle, you forget your tricycle, or when you get the car, you forget your scooter, So, the secret, when you combine these two, then automatically it tells you that when you focus on the higher, automatically you give less value to the lower. Right? And that, I think, is the part explanation of what Kamleshji was referring to, and what you have explained to us many times. Right?
Perfectly. Yes.
And on a lighter note, as all that the scriptures you have taught us, whatever you have taught us, you've always talked of look inward, and therefore the concept of happiness, gratitude, all that kind of, being happy with yourself, and don't look outward. And it comes down to that you only when you look outward, or you only compare, or only feel want of, you see the glass as half empty rather than half full, is only when you look outward. It's only in a relative sense that it's half empty or half full. Right? It is never half full in a relative sense. It's only when you compare with others or compare outside. And comparison by definition is not inward, but outward. And again, this is the same concept that Bijuji said, that the secret of not getting hassled in the baggage is to be internal and not outward looking. So you have hand baggage only. Keep it with yourself. Thank you.
Setuji.
Hari Om Guruji.
Namaskar, sir.
I just wanted to add what Hariji told about comparison, corporates comparison. There are very big organization, global organization, whose job is to compare and provide you information. They all subscribe and they pay millions of dollars as annual subscription. They, whatever you want data on your competitor, they will give. In the process, they fish information from you and pass on this information to others. This is a big business. And one more I wanted to add, Guruji, that Rajasic people, some people may be having question in mind, why if they are ungrateful also, Providence provides them. But I feel actually Providence, by providing them, punishes them. Because when they get more and more, they unknowingly, until they become contented, they will always be agitated, restless, and the more the acquisition, it leads to a lot of problems. So people may be thinking, see, why that happens. They are ungrateful. One is their karma, and another is this. Thank you.
Yes, right. No, valuable input. So this is how we are able to one is take the perspective from the Shastras, and then how divergent we are operating, which is from tamas, rajas to sattva. So there's a clear graph, a clear separation we find. There's a great wall that separates rajas and sattva. Once you switch to this side, it's an amazing experience. And so the Shastras are constantly appealing as how we can inject these higher values into our day-to-day life, how we can function, the same action, how we can translate and transform it, GBK ji. Namaskar, sir. Yes, sir, namaskar. Any valuable thoughts, sir, for us?
My childhood, when I was studying 6th standard, my classmate, we used to go 3 kilometers travel to school, and he is very, very intelligent and very smart in education compared to me. But when I came to know he's not able to continue the school, then I felt why my father doesn't have money to pay the fees. I went to his father. I requested him, your son is so intelligent, why don't you support him? No, I have 10 children. It's not possible for me. And that still today, it banks me that, the greatest opportunity today is the laborer. See the condition, the opportunities, which that is but for me, the consciousness that makes me how fortunate I am, how my parents are able to give me education, the support. So this is the comparison, which it mind-boggling sometimes. Why they didn't get that opportunity? That's why we have to say the karma. Maybe that which we have to some of things which are very difficult to understand what is right, what is wrong. The families which we compare. So the comparison always what you give with the comparison for looking the people who are higher than you, they're different. Lower than you, we think that I have 2 eyes, 2 ears, I have smell, I have taste, I have legs, I have hands, I have that itself. If we think the comparison with others on the street, we are so fortunate. That is what it makes is ultimate happiness. That is compare. The God is so kind.
Absolutely, sir. Really, really, very well said. In fact, looking forward to spending a couple of days with you.
Most welcome.
Thank you. Right, sir. See you soon. In a few hours, we'll see you. We'll join you.
Right, sir. Waiting for.
Namaskar. Namaskar.
Most welcome. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. So, so that was on meditating on the form of Lord of Lakshmi, which is Vishnu, which is once your thoughts are towards the higher, you develop an attitude of gratitude. And the last quality in the verse, he says, Bhagavad Gita and Nama Sahasram, Sahasranamam should be chanted. Now, Ramji, this is an intellectual quality, sir. Perhaps a slight contrast to what chanting of the Gita and the Sahasranamam is interpreted as intellectual quality. So you are able to see the connect here.
Well, I think, Namaste Guruji, I think the Sahasranamam and this are mentioned as what are called just for example purposes. I feel that the point here is that you must meditate upon the higher things. I mean, you must meditate upon, or you must keep thinking about the higher things in life, or those things which bring, which elevate your mind. I think that's how I was looking at that. That's where it becomes intellectual, because you keep your mind under control through using your intellect. And one of the ways you do that is to meditate upon, and as you mentioned many times, that meditation should be for self-realization purposes, not for what is being sold today. So I think in that context, when we say meditate here, perhaps it refers to higher purpose, and it refers to contemplation, it refers to self-realization, move the path towards self-realization. That's the way I look at it.
Okay, okay. See, the term, rightly said, G, but the term meditation was used at the emotional level, where you meditate on the Lord of Lakshmi, which is Vishnu. Now, lastly, the thing where he says Gita and Sahasranamam, as rightly said, it's not to be taken literally, it's just only a point of reference. So when you chant the text, for example, even the Gita and the Sahasranamam, when people do chant, it invariably becomes a mere mechanical repetition. So when he says the chant as an intellectual quality, we are trying to interpret it as trying to understand the deeper import of these texts. So once you are able to intellectually understand rather than a mere mechanical chant, when you chant, your mind gets, when you even, let's just try and chant the Gita or chant these great texts, the Vishnu Sahasranamam. In fact, one of the reasons my guru used to tell me that he enrolled me into the ashram at that young age is because I could chant the Sahasranamam. And right from a very young age, I could rattle off the Vishnu Sahasranamam. I used to come out on the wet towel in the washroom, and my father used to remember still that small, the tape recorder we had, that cassette. I still even remember the color of the cassette, M.S. Subbulakshmi's Vishnu Sahasranamam, and he used to put it on, and I used to chant. And until I finished the chanting, I wouldn't even put on the school uniform. So at the age of 8 or 9, I picked up that. And so it used to be a ritual. I used to chant the Sahasranamam, you know. So once you have that in you, so I can relate to it when he says chant. So chanting gives a mental climate. Your mind becomes calm. But once you intellectually interpret the deeper import, you get a know-how of the unknown truth, because these scriptures are deep import communicating the unknown truth. They're conveying what that state of self-realization, Ramji, as you rightly said. So chanting is not to mechanically do it, but a blend of emotion and to inject intellection. So when there is emotion and intellection, you will be able to comprehend the truth better. So that's what the quality of chanting Gita and Sahasranamam. So very, very heavily packed verse, the 27th verse. Wealth to be given to the needy. The mind should be associated with the good. Meditate on the Lord of Lakshmi and chant Gita and Sahasranamam. We'll have to leave it at that. We'll come back and we'll take it forward. Right. Thank you. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.